What if I told you that nothing in your life is random? That the delays, the rejections, the silence, the things that didn't go your way were never working against you? What if the only reason it feels that way is because you have been looking at life from the wrong side of your own power? Listen carefully, because what I am about to tell you will disturb the way you see everything. Right now, in this very moment, your life is not unfolding by chance. It is responding to you, to the way you think when no one is watching, to the way you feel when everything seems uncertain, to the quiet assumptions you repeat inside your mind over and over again until they become your reality. And here is the truth most people never realize. Life is not happening to you, it is happening through you. But you don't feel that, do you? You feel like things go wrong, you feel like you try, and something blocks you. You feel like sometimes, no matter how much effort you put in, life just doesn't cooperate. And slowly, without even noticing, you begin to expect it. You begin to assume, things don't work out for me. I always struggle. Nothing ever goes smoothly. And that assumption becomes your silent identity. You carry it everywhere, into conversations, into opportunities, into your future. And then you wonder, why does it keep repeating? Why does life keep proving you right? Pause for a moment, because this is where everything changes. The world you experience is not controlled by your actions. It is shaped by your assumptions, not what you want, not what you wish, but what you deeply, quietly expect to be true. Let that sink in. Because if your expectation is that things are difficult, life will rearrange itself to match that belief. If your expectation is that things fall apart, you will find evidence again and again until it feels like a fact. But here is the part that will challenge everything you've ever believed. What if you could choose a different assumption? What if, instead of waiting for life to prove itself to you, you decided right now that everything always works out for you? Not sometimes, not occasionally. Always, even when it doesn't look like it. Even when there is no visible proof. Because the truth is, your outer world is always catching up to your inner state. It's delayed, it's reflective, it's obedient, and yet most people never test this. They wait, they doubt, they react, they let circumstances decide how they feel instead of understanding that how they feel is what creates the circumstances. You see, the moment you say, everything works out for me, your mind resists. It whispers, but what about that failure? What about that rejection? What about the times things didn't go your way? And that voice feels real. It feels logical. It feels convincing. But it is nothing more than the echo of your past assumptions. It is not truth. It is memory. And memory has no power unless you give it authority. So let me ask you something. What would your life feel like if you truly believed, without a single doubt, that everything always works out for you? Close your eyes for a moment and imagine it. Not vaguely, not half-heartedly. Fully, you walk into a situation and instead of tension, there is calm. Instead of fear, there is certainty. Instead of overthinking, there is quiet confidence. Because deep inside, you already know the outcome. It works out. It always does. You don't chase, you don't force, you don't beg life to cooperate. You move with the quiet knowing that things are aligning in your favor, even when you cannot see it yet. And that changes everything. Because when you feel that way, you think differently, you speak differently, you decide differently, and slowly, reality begins to mirror that inner certainty. But here is where it becomes deeper, because this is not about repeating empty words. It is not about saying everything works out for me while feeling doubt inside. That does nothing. Words without feeling are powerless. It is the feeling, the inner conviction, the quiet, unshakable knowing that shapes your world. So the real question is, can you feel it before you see it? Can you stand in uncertainty and still assume success? Can you face the unknown and still remain grounded in the belief that everything is unfolding perfectly? Because if you can, then something extraordinary begins to happen. Life starts rearranging itself in ways you cannot predict. Opportunities appear out of nowhere. People respond differently to you. Situations that once felt difficult begin to soften. Not because the world changed, but because you did. And yet most people never reach this point. Do you know why? Because they're addicted to reacting. They wait for proof. They wait for something outside to confirm that things are going well. And until then, they worry, they doubt, they assume the worst. They say, I'll believe it when I see it. But the truth is, you will only see it when you believe it. That is the law. Unchanging, unforgiving, precise. And once you understand this, you can never go back to thinking the same way again. Because now you know every reaction you have, every thought you entertain, every feeling you hold on to is shaping what comes next. So if something goes wrong and you react with frustration, you are not just responding to the moment. You are reinforcing a pattern. You are telling your mind, this is how life works. And life listens, always. But imagine this instead. Something unexpected happens. Something doesn't go according to plan. And instead of reacting, you pause. You breathe. And you say to yourself, it's okay. This is still working out for me. Not as a lie, not as denial, but as a decision. A conscious choice to assume a different outcome. In that moment, you break the old pattern, you step out of the cycle, you refuse to let appearances dictate your belief. And that is where your power begins. Because reality is not fixed, it is fluid, it is shaped by the state of consciousness you occupy. And when you occupy the state of someone for whom everything always works out, life has no choice but to reflect that state. But there is something even deeper, something most people overlook. Because they try this once or twice, they say the words, they attempt to feel it, and when nothing immediately changes, they give up. They go back to their old way of thinking. They say, this doesn't work, but what they don't realize is, they never truly changed their assumption. They were still waiting, still doubting, still checking the outside for confirmation. And that cancels everything. Because this is not about trying. This is about becoming the person who naturally expects things to work out. Becoming the person who does not question it. Becoming the person who no longer entertains the possibility of failure as a final outcome. And that shift is not forced, it is practiced, quietly, consistently, in the unseen moments, when no one is watching, when nothing is happening, when the world gives you no reason to believe. That is when your true state is revealed. That is when you either return to doubt or remain in certainty. And the one you choose determines everything. So now, I want you to notice something. Pay attention to your thoughts throughout the day. Not just the obvious ones, but the subtle ones, the automatic ones, the ones that slip in without effort. What are you assuming without even realizing it? Are you expecting delays? Are you anticipating problems? Are you preparing for things to go wrong? Because if you are, then you are unconsciously creating the very reality you wish to avoid. And this is where the shift must happen. Not outside, inside. You must begin to catch those thoughts and gently replace them. Not with force, not with struggle, but with awareness and a new decision. This works out for me again and again, until it no longer feels like effort, but identity. Until it becomes the lens through which you see everything. Because once it becomes your identity, it no longer matters what happens outside. You remain unchanged, stable, certain, And that certainty begins to influence everything around you. But here is the part most people are not ready to hear. There will be moments when everything around you will seem to contradict your belief. Moments where it looks like nothing is working. Moments where doubt will try to pull you back. Moments where your old self will whisper, "See, it's not working." And in that moment, everything depends on what you do next. Because that moment, is the test. Not from the world, but from your own consciousness. Will you return to the old assumption, or will you remain in the new one, no matter what? Because if you can remain, if you can hold the feeling, if you can stay loyal to the belief that everything is working out for you, even when there is no evidence, then something begins to shift. Something subtle but powerful. Something that cannot be seen immediately but can be felt. And just as that shift begins to take form, just as reality starts to respond in a way you didn't expect, something else happens. Something that most people completely misunderstand. And it is at this exact point where almost everyone turns back, not realizing they were closer than ever before. And it is at this exact point where almost everyone turns back, not realizing they were closer than ever before. Because what you are experiencing in that moment is not failure, it is transition. It is the space between the old version of you and the new one you are becoming. And that space feels uncomfortable. It feels uncertain. It feels like nothing is moving. But something is. Something is rearranging beneath the surface, beyond what your eyes can see. And this is where your understanding must deepen. Because if you rely only on what is visible, you will miss what is real. You see, imagination is not just something you use to escape reality. It is the very force that creates it. Every outcome, every experience, every circumstance is first born in the unseen, in thought, in feeling, in assumption, and then slowly it hardens into fact. But here is the part that changes everything. You are not imagining from your current reality. You are meant to imagine beyond it. Most people sit in their present circumstances and try to visualize a better future while still feeling the weight of their current limitations. And so their imagination becomes weak, conflicted, divided. They say they want something different, but they feel the same. And feeling is what creates. So nothing changes. Truly understand it, a door opens. A realization begins to form. You no longer use imagination as a tool of wishful thinking. You begin to use it as a place to live. Let me explain. There is a version of you right now who already lives a life where everything works out. Not in the future, not someday. Now, a version of you who moves with certainty, who expects alignment, who does not question outcomes, because outcomes always favor them. That version of you exists. And the only difference between you and that version is state, a shift in consciousness, a shift in identity. So the question is no longer, how do I make things work out? The question becomes, who am I being when things always work out for me? Feel that, because that question changes everything. Now you are no longer chasing results, you are embodying a state. And once you embody the state, the results must follow. They have no choice. So how do you do this? How do you step into that version of yourself? Not just for a moment, but as a way of being. You begin in the only place that truly matters, within. Close your eyes for a moment, not casually, but with intention. And imagine a scene, simple, short, but powerful. A moment that would imply your life is already working out. It could be a conversation where someone congratulates you. It could be a feeling of relief after everything falls into place. It could be you sitting quietly, knowing everything aligned perfectly. Do not overcomplicate it. Keep it real. Keep it natural. But here is the key. Do not watch the scene like an outsider. Step into it. become it, see through, H your own eyes. Feel it as if it is happening now, not later, not someday, now. Hear the sounds, notice the details, feel the emotion, let it be so real that your body responds. Because when your body responds, you are no longer imagining, you are experiencing. And experience is what impresses the mind. Stay there for a moment, do not rush, do not force, let it unfold naturally. And then carry that feeling with you, not just in that moment, but into your day, into your actions, into your thoughts. Because this is where the real transformation happens. Not in the visualization itself, but in what you do after. You see, anyone can imagine for a few minutes, but very few can remain loyal to that inner experience when the world tries to contradict it. That is where your power is tested. That is where your identity is formed. Because if you can walk through your day holding on to that feeling, responding from that state, thinking from that place, then you are no longer practicing. You are becoming, and something begins to change. Subtly at first, almost unnoticeable. Your reactions shift. Situations that once triggered you no longer have the same effect. You become calmer, more certain, more grounded. Not because everything is perfect, but because you know it will be. And that knowing starts to influence everything around you. People feel it. Opportunities align with it. Circumstances begin to reflect it. But it does not happen in the way you expect. It rarely does. Because when everything works out for you, it does not mean everything goes according to your plan. It means everything unfolds in a way that leads you to the outcome, even if the path looks different. And this is where trust becomes essential. Not blind hope, not wishful thinking, but a deep inner trust in the unseen process. A trust that says, even this is part of it. Even the delay, even the redirection, even the unexpected change. Because when you truly assume that everything works out for you, you stop labeling things as good or bad. You begin to see everything as movement, everything as alignment, everything as part of a larger unfolding. And that shift removes fear, because fear only exists when you believe something can go wrong. But what if nothing ever does? What if everything, no matter how it appears, is leading you exactly where you need to be? Feel what that does to your mind. Feel the release, the calm, the quiet confidence that begins to replace anxiety. That is the state. That is the frequency. That is the identity of the one for whom everything always works out. And now, you are no longer trying to force life. You are allowing it. You are flowing with it. You are moving with a certainty that cannot be shaken by temporary appearances. And here is the beautiful part. The more you remain in this state, the faster reality begins to reflect it. Not because you are controlling the outside, but because the outside is responding to the inside. Like a mirror, faithful, precise, unquestioning. So if you change what you hold within, the reflection must change. It is law. But there is one final shift, one final realization that takes this to an entirely different level. Because up until now, you may still feel like you are doing something, like you are practicing, like you are applying a technique. And that is fine in the beginning, but eventually it must become effortless. It must become who you are. Because the person who naturally lives in the assumption that everything works out does not need to remind themselves constantly. They do not need to force belief. They simply know. It is automatic. It is natural. It is their baseline. And that is where you are going. Not to a place of effort, but to a place of identity. So begin to ask yourself throughout the day, if everything always worked out for me, how would I feel right now? If everything was already aligned, how would I respond to this? If I truly believed that nothing could go wrong, what would I do next? And then do that, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Now, because every moment is an opportunity to step into that state. Every thought is a chance to choose differently. Every reaction is a doorway, either back into your old self or forward into the one you are becoming. And the more you choose the new self, the weaker the old one becomes, until one day you realize something has changed. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but quietly, naturally. You no longer panic the way you used to. You no longer expect things to fall apart. You no longer search for problems that haven't happened yet. Instead, there is a calm, a steady knowing, a deep inner certainty that carries you through everything. And then, without warning, life begins to reflect it in ways that feel almost unreal. Things align, situations resolve themselves, opportunities appear at the right time, people enter your life at the right moment, and you begin to see it was never random, it was never luck, it was you, it was always you. The way you thought, the way you assumed life would unfold. And now you understand, not intellectually, but experientially, that your inner world is the cause and the outer world is the effect. And once you see that, once you truly see that, there is no going back. Because now you know you don't have to chase outcomes, you don't have to control everything, you don't have to live in fear of what might happen. All you have to do is choose the state and remain loyal to it, no matter what. Because the moment you do, the moment you fully accept that everything always works out for you, life begins to organize itself around that truth, quietly, powerfully, inevitably. So from this moment forward, walk differently, think differently, feel differently, not because the world has changed, but because you have. And as you continue, as you persist, as you remain anchored in this new way of being, you will begin to witness something that once felt impossible. A life that moves with you, responds to you, aligns for you in ways you never thought possible. Until one day you look back at everything that once worried you, everything that once felt uncertain, and you realize it all led you here exactly as it was meant to, proving to you beyond any doubt that it was always working out. It just needed you to believe it first.